Dance Academy and Excels program in CC and Montpellier.
With Ido Feder.
With Ido Feder, that's the connection. In 2015, she created SOTA, creation-oriented contemporary dance and performance platform. In 2015 in Moscow, in 2017 in Bordeaux. SOTA strives to be a resource place for artists and experimental work platform for different art forms and communities. Initiated by Dina, this pedagogical research program encourages its participants to learn and discover within new artistic territories, to meet local and international artists, to practice through thinking and doing, to identify their potentials for artistic actions. In different years in the frame of the program, she invited and collaborated with Boris Shermatz, Bojana Svajic, Isabelle Schad, Futfal di Mobilité, and others. In 2016, she created Performative Practice Place in Moscow, an independent art space for the development of arts associated with performativity, a platform for interaction between artists and the public in a common creative process of cross-discipline artistic practices. In co-creation with Émilie Houdon, she initiated Festival de Programmation in November 2017 at Théâtre Manufacture Atlantique, Bordeaux. Deprogrammation, it's a 2 weeks international festival with open doors for the theater from morning till night every day. Filled by workshop discussion, roundtables, performances, concert debates, Deprogrammation aims to question the state of democracy today and reinvest in the social and political art by distributing curatorial power to artists. As a dancer-performer, she worked with Galili Dance, Anouk Van Daal, Loïc Tuzet, Tino Segal, Kali Spooner, and others. Her work were presented in diverse festivals in France, Russia, Hungary, Latvia, and Spain.
What a
At the moment, Dina Khuseyn lives and works between France and Russia, where she creates her choreographic and curatorial projects, often busy with the questions of artistic community, international collaborations, and force of a dance art as a tool for constructing connections.
Thank you a lot for this presentation. Today, thank you a lot. It was really beautiful. Actually, I wanted to say that first, I am super happy to be here, and I was really happy to hear all of you. I didn't understand everything, but because you were so kind and you translated a lot of things for me, I understood. Your presentations and your works of the people who are working here locally, it's really super great for me to discover you as an artist and what are you busy with, what kind of questions are you busy with. It's really beautiful to watch. And maybe I will talk about this a bit later, because the initial idea of Ido to invite me here and for me to be here, it was in order to create a sort of a platform where different artists who works with the body, but different nationalities, let's say, of the artists could come together and see how our body is also constructed by culture that we live in, by cultural context that we live in, basically. So we're supposed to do a workshop together with Ido on the theme of boycott, but I think that, because he got sick, poor, and we hope he will get better really soon. And we couldn't do it today, but still maybe at the end of this, I don't know if he'll get better. It would be super nice to touch this subject, but I didn't want to touch the subject without him, because the initiative was really between two of us, so it doesn't make so much sense to talk about this today. But I would like to share with you, because with Ido Feder we did a school in France 8 or 9 years ago together, and since then we did very different projects. Like he come to Israel, he came back here, and he created all these festivals and works and etc. etc. And these platforms also as a meeting. And I was very active in Moscow and in France at the same time. That was like 2 countries where I developed my activities. So for now, I just give you like a very brief talk about my post works, like the works that I did, and the most interesting of them, I would really talk about projects that touch me and that I'm interested in and that I would like to develop, and I will talk about projects that change me also, my artistic practice, let's say, as a human being. So the first project is SOTA. It's a research education program that aimed to bring choreographers that work with the body, but also it's a non-disciplinary, you can say, program, because often we would have 6 choreographers and 6 people that coming from completely different disciplines, like philosophy, fine arts. There would be theoreticians or musicians or video people who are working with the video. So the idea was really like first to bring the other knowledge in dance, like to bring people that have other knowledges in the field of dance, but also to move dance in the other territories, let's say physically. Because I started this program in Russia and in Moscow, we don't have even one institution that is dedicated to contemporary dance. We already have to be a nomad form of art, let's say. Like we are pushed to be nomad because there isn't, like, it's really contrary to France, because I'm living in this kind of super schizophrenic space. Because in France you have like 31, it's exceptional situation. In France you have like 31 contemporary dance center, almost in every city. So. And it's like in opposition to this, in Moscow it's like nothing. I mean, in Russia we have maybe 2 places that are artist-built spaces to this form of art. So this program would also with this program I would try to move dance in other territories. Let's say we go often to the street or museums or visual art spaces or galleries or some spaces that are not meant to be for art. So the idea is really move dance in all these different territories and see how they are, what kind of response you have from them. Like to show you one thing faster. Yes. So for example, this video was. Yes, this video, so I started with this program, and first this program was kind of educational. So the idea was really because I did I did my studies in Europe, so I wanted to come back and to kind of share, bring some knowledge there. So the first it was really educational, but then I felt like there is more needs. The context need more things. It's not only education, for sure, like. I couldn't just make an educational program because me personally, I was interested in research. So it became research automatically because I was there and I was bringing subjects that interest me personally as an artist. So it became like more, not like a classical educational program, but more like a group of artists who would come together to research on some topics. And every year, the program would be constructed around the different topics of research. And the second year, we did it in Garage Cultural Center. It's in Moscow. In Moscow, we have 2 huge institutions, 2 museums of contemporary art, and they are private, both of them. Talking about money. And we was working, the second year was built around mass and multitude as a subject, so where the individual start to feel himself as a mass of people, and or where, like, what is this border between individual and a group, and how can group be together without this idea of like being a mass of people. It was also like revisiting somehow Soviet experiences on the subject, but more like watch as a group, also like as a multitude, so where each, like it would be a group, but individually rich with different personalities. So at the end we was busy with the space also, and you will see the line of like in the also the project. Basically what SOTA is for me, like I must say it because it's also interesting, like in being in Europe, an artist in Europe, I don't often have a chance to work with the people that I like or I work. So for me to come in Russia and to organize this platform where I could invite artists that I would like to work with personally was also a thing. So I would say like, oh, be not bad to work with Boris, for example, or try to, or like with Fufa. So I would invite people that I was interested to collaborate with on this territory. It's just like, I don't know, my way of, so like putting the maximum desires in one project or something like this. So here, yeah, and here we was working with different people. Isabelle Schad came to work on the question of mass. She really works like really interesting with like massive, how do you say, body as a sort of a sculptural landscape, but also like as a machine that works perfectly. But also a very somatic machine because she is doing a lot of martial arts, so she brought this like essential approach like to this mechanism, let's say. So I found it interesting and she was invited. And also we did like, just with the participants, we created 6 hours parcours, I don't know how to say, like we sort of tried to put to stick, to put, to throw our bodies everywhere in the space of Contemporary Art Museum. And it was not always very accepted, let's say, because we was always not allowed, like the most funniest thing that we would like to do, it was forbidden, for sure, of course, like, so at the end, for me it ended up a little bit like a reducted model, because reducted model of what we could have done, because for sure the space of Contemporary Art Museum is very, very protected. There is a lot of issues about where you should go, where you shouldn't go, like security issues and everything. So, but still, just to shut up for a little moment, I will show you the video. Oops, there we go. So it was also like, it was constructed, all the participants would work on their performances, each of them elaborated performance that after we would put together in a sort of dramatic line for the public to move through the space and discover the space differently. So for sure it's a super short video because so we also check this, like all these modes of existence between like doing a performance in a museum or being a performative installation in a museum. What does it mean? What kind of different approach public can have to a performative body? we had to negotiate incredibly a long time because girls, they wanted to just wear a bra and in the private space. I have to. It's super interesting because it's very simple. It's like you're not crossing any border, right? You're just in a bra, and but it was very, very problematic. We just wanted to have a people like wearing bra and underwear in the normal places like cafes and things like, and do normal stuff, and we would have to really talk to a direction, like to explain why we really need to do this, why it's very important for us like to have this idea. Yeah, I found it ridiculous, but that's what we had to go through, and at the end they're like, oh, okay, so, or even they, I don't remember, like we didn't have okay till the last moment, and then we just like, let's just do it, let's just go for it, and it was okay, but I mean, yeah. They formulate because this video, it's a garage made this video, so they really modifies your idea about what is happening by putting a certain reaction in the public inside. The collaboration with contemporary composers started because it was like Sota was a place where I realized that contemporary composers are really close somehow to contemporary dance practices, and then we have a lot of to share, and that we can use scores as scores both for choreographic and musical practices, and it was like already there. Yes. You can draw this line. So so what's happened also, like what happens also in Soto more or less? Yeah, let's just move to the other actually project that this was Soto 2016. I did it for 3 years. I did in 2015, 2016, 2017.
And this is like all of them, or just one?
This is just one. This is 2016 year. And inside there was a lot of different things. Also, not everything. Not everything actually got inside. But that was a year when I started also. Basically, if you have questions, or it's
I must say that I really feel connected because actually we did a lot of things like this, and we did also with the sound, like a composer worked with us about. So I feel really connected.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I was
It's
also.
amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, right.
And it's funny we have to talk about the periods project because in 2010 I did a project connected with the periods. Just, but it's super funny. Yeah, it's like you coming and I don't often experience also this kind of connection in Europe. You know, that's why for me it's interesting. Yeah, to see how the ideas formulates, like what formulates different ideas.
And it's amazingly different, you know, different people, different places, and dealing with
exactly,
the
like
body,
questioning
so
the same, yeah, exactly. Like for example, this I wanted to show you this thing. It's like we did. It was in Moscow. Also, we started exactly this year. This research is 2016. It was like the idea to really like experiment again the city and the body and our like let's say a social a space of a city as a playground, but also it's something that you have to struggle with every day to find like other ways to live it somehow. So we did and also the idea of scores is here. Like we had 17 participants, and God bless you. We would go from one place in Moscow to the other. Normally the walk takes like 2 hours and a half because it's a huge city. It's amazing. So we divided each part of this road with a different score, and each part of the road was given to one of the participants, and he will propose how we would cross this part. So it was like, it gave like 3 hours and a half performance somehow, different with different scores inside, and different ways of moving through the city. So yeah, this one, it has some photos. I don't know if you see that people, I don't know if it's this one that the people are reacting. Sure to this one? No. Moscow. Yeah, it's also nice because, I mean, we did it just once. It was totally improvisation. We could also prepare, it was not a performance at all. So it was not something that we would prepare. But later you could really see that, for sure, city proposes a lot of architecture. Like for example, this one, someone had this idea, like he went on this period, he went before to check his road. And he saw that there is a river, so he invented this score that we would scream a word, like, to the another side, like one word would pass through all this body and then come back. And that gives also an idea, like I mean, city can be used as a really architectural, I mean, yeah, like space to create performances, yeah. Yes. Yes, this one. There was one guy who asked us to make a photos with him. So everybody have to go on the picture. It was so sweet. Yeah, just a simple task also that we have to walk across, looking on the sky, but like holding each other. So I mean, there was all these like also simple things, and then it gives also, yeah, this one that was more like working also with the also like architecture as and also like how much inspiration we can have in the city. So that's just a simple thing. These guys are, it was a metro.
Nice.
Mm. yeah, we was in the spirit when people go really fast, you know, in the metro, they just crossing, so you don't even see the bodies. Like if you stand, you don't see the shapes. And at one point, for sure, we got really, got really complicated, because the woman, the old women who are working in this metro, there was really questioning what we're doing at one point. Old lady, she came, and she was like trying to grab Dima, who was like here, and like to push him out of the hole, but because I was up on him, like it was really dangerous. But it wouldn't stop her, because for her it's like out of something completely surreal happening, so she needed to stop this. But what she was doing, it was dangerous, so we was trying to explain her like all this. You have like, yeah, really sweet interactions. So it's this. Yeah, and actually this also, the idea, it's super funny because it was us who was like trying to just research the body and the city, this question. And the next year I invited Fufa d'Immobilité. I don't know if you heard about, he's a Swiss choreographer. And he invented the project that first called Dance Run. And then, when he became a bit aged, he called it just Dance Walk. That's what happens with the time. So the idea was really like his initial idea was like, why do we dance all the time, like around or on the spot, or like we would just use a square or a circle, like to be in the same space. Like he wanted to open this line and make it long, like really to just open a line through the city. So he puts a dance and walk together, and to create like this kind of long trips, let's say, and also to open a choreography for this experience of distance. So it would give like when he came, we did 3 dance walks, one in Kostroma, the other one in Moscow, and another one in St. Petersburg, and every time we would dance like 12 kilometers or 10 kilometers or 14, and it's a kind of also, it's very interesting because it's performative, but it's also like a practice, like super physical practice, where you have to like, you just die on the 6 kilometer, you just die. And Fufa, basically, he's a dancer who did Merce Cunningham a lot. He was working a lot with him, so he have like his body is a machine. Like he can do whatever you are. Like he's super strong. So when everybody's dying, he's like woohoo, like running. But it's a very interesting project also that make me myself experience this like how you can say, like almost dance through time and through space, and by endurance of this, like also how much physical effort it actually demands from you to be dancing, even, I mean, to keep dancing, and to how physical it is. But it's also very interesting because we would start, like, for example, for sure 12 kilometers, the performance would go for like 4 hours or 5 hours. So we would have a public that start with us, but not everyone ready to go for these distances. Like somebody would start with us in the beginning, and then we would have people joining like in the center or close to the end. But the ones who like really did the trip, also like in Moscow we had more people with us. It's also it's changing your perspective as a public, because I mean, first you have to physically engage your body also in a walk, like through these long distances, and also somehow the dancing body brings allows you to see and to perceive differently the architecture of every day, what is happening in the street. So it's really changing your your eyes, changing your perception of the city. And what we realized with the project before that was trying without FUFA, like with this course with the city, is that also at the end of the road we was like, whoa, the city is ours. Like all of a sudden you had this feeling like it's like a mountain you climbed or something, you know? Like I really love this idea that you have this like super physical approach somehow to the city, like it's becoming like nature for you, like a landscape, like a mountain or something where you have to really engage. So at the end, you're just like, yeah, this is my city. I don't know, it was like super happy, and the fact that we made it. And you also go through a lot of things, because I don't know what you was talking about, but I imagine like we have a lot of things to talk about together. But like the people are reacting differently all the time. So they are giving all these comments like, you come from crazy house, like it's the first one, and the second one is like, oh my God, it's all, like, because you are kind of when you dance, you also have a different body states. You also like I think something is happening like physically to your body that you're not the same, and like you have these fluids, and people are catching these fluids, so they are also like just laughing. For sure, it gives also these kind of things, like this. How do you say? Как это сказать? Когда тебя заражает что-то. Like maybe infecting, like it's a sort of infection, like then it's infection. And so with FUFA, I wanted to show you. So it means that the thing is like it's very nice to stay all along this experience, because at the end, really something is shifting. That's what's interesting as a performer. As a public, for the public also. But this you can realize only if you like kind of go to the end. So this, this was in St. Petersburg. He was starting along from the press conference. He would just go like and would start like dancing and go out of the theater, and at one point we would join him as a group, and another point there was also like a meeting point for people to join in, more people to join in. So it was a beautiful process, because he started alone, and then he like get this group together with him, and then at the end he was just like 150 people dancing in the street. And it's strange because it comes from artistic proposition. It's also the fact that you kind of, there is no choreography written, so you have to be super inventive. You're like writing a choreography on the way you walk, and
really writing.
yeah, literally, exactly. Here it's like clear. But it demands a super effort, because you cannot just, you can also, we did a lot of just blah blah dancing. It can be also this way, but because FUFA worked a lot with Cunningham, he really, I think he have a certain demand to his body, to choreography, and he's also trying to push you like. And for sure, there was music sometimes. Sometimes it was in silence. We had two other musicians, and they would have to somehow joining out of nothing. Like it was not. So I mean, it also have like this festive, like a little celebration idea. But not only, sometimes it gets really strange, like we are crawling on the floor, there is no music, like we're doing weird stuff, so it really can go all over different places. Some tourists must be like really like he's sitting in a quiet garden and in St. Petersburg we also had a little bit more evolved choreographic structure. We would, like, it was not the case for Kostroma or Moscow. But in St. Petersburg, because everything was so like, it's a big festival and they prepared a lot of things, so Fufa wanted also like to try some choreographic things, and actually it really works because sometimes like when you go dance work for the long distance, somewhere in the middle you're already like, you're out of force, you're out of inspiration, and to have some choreographic support can be also useful. And like our participants are like maybe 15. The rest is just people joining.
And how old is
Fufa? How old?
How old?
Good question. Like in his 50s? Yeah, he's really okay. Okay, so and this one, just first thing, that was a dance work that we did in Moscow in the Red Square. I mean, in Moscow, I will also explain because it's interesting. Also, every time it's possible to invent a concept like why you would dance run, for what. It's a little bit concept connected to Anna Halfrin. I don't know, universal dances, if you heard about her. Like, she would do these dances for purpose, like you would dance Anna Halfrin.
Yeah.
So here we was like, and Fufa also was kind of also questioning like why do we do it here? Why do we do it in the city? Why do we need to do it in the city? What the city needs and everything. And for example, in Moscow, it was a bit conceptual. I don't know if it's really. In Moscow, we decided that we was dancing from the theater till the Red Square and back, and it was like. And because we was thinking also about, like, we wanted to make this a bit more feminine, like to bring more femininity to the space, because Russia is very, you know, probably masculine and, yeah, patriarchal. So, like, even boys and girls, they would wear skirts. But also the idea was to dance vagina to Red Square and back and trace a huge vagina in the map of the city. And it was because the streets was like this, so we decided like it's impressionist vagina, you know. It's not like, it's cubist like. We didn't manage to have for sure we was. Like at one point we was stopped in the Red Square. It's not like the interesting part about dance work. It's also like it's a manifestation of dance, of the body, of a freedom on the street. But it also can stop anyway. So that's a magical thing about dance, because there is nothing more like you just stop doing this. Like it's not. And as we was going through the city, we decided like if we'll get really in troubles. In the Red Square, we decided like to do like this, to spread, not to be a group. And if we have a troubles, we just walk normally, and you know, it's like all of a sudden, like there was a performance, and all of a sudden there is nothing. There's just people walking. I mean, it's kind of, and I really like this because it's a sort of a magical about dance, because you never like where's the point where when you stop and you start and stop, and how it's not you cannot grasp it.
Not ready. Subversive.
Yeah, and after I also invite Fufo in Bordeaux, where we was doing this festival that I want also to talk you about. The festival called Déprogrammation in French. And the idea was, it was arriving in a very specific moment where there was a place that called Theatre Manufacture, and the center of dance. And basically, the center of dance lost its building because they were not in the Bordeaux, but there was in a small city called Artigues, close to Bordeaux. And the mayor of the city didn't want them anymore, so they had to move out and they had to find other. But the mayor of Bordeaux decided, okay, we're gonna just take this center and put it in the theater. Basically, it was a bit like for us. It was very sad because in the city there is already not a lot of theaters and not a lot of spaces for artists, and it was the most radical theater in Bordeaux. But nobody can really. I mean, we also found that people was not so ready to protest because somehow a lot of people was supported by the Centre de Danse Chorégraphique. So nobody wanted really to point up the fingers and make like enemies with. So we decided, like, okay, nobody will gonna protest, like, so how can we use this time to make a kind of an art event protesting itself? It means Émilie Houdin, she was an administrator of Manufacture Atlantique, of this theater. And actually, director of the theater, he just went half a year before. He went for another theater because he got another theater close to Paris, so he just left. And Emily she was administrator, but she had to take a role of a curator somehow. So we were talking with her about this and about this context and what we can do with it. And with a lot of people also around, we realized that artists are very passive. Nobody would really do something. So we said, like, okay, how can we create an art event out of this? And this concept of deprogrammation, deprogramming in English came. It was the idea because in France there is a lot of institutions, and it's very hard to move things. Like, it's very tight. What's it tight? Like Dance and Thoughts. So it's very hard to shake them. The way it goes, it works, but. So the idea of deprogrammation was like to deprogram and in the theater there is when you do a programmation, you call it programmation. So to deprogram, it's to take away classical programmation, let's say. So we wanted really to clear space of the theater for like 2 weeks, and to also propose a theater be another place, like what it can be, like what do we need today, like we was talking a lot about art and politics, how these two fields where they're crossing over, how is it possible to actually not push a little bit, but push a little bit artists to take their positions. Like, is it possible? Is it necessary or not? How the artistic event can be a protest, but not protesting with like just occupying a theater, but protesting with projects themselves. So basically, we had a very different strategy, and for sure there was this idea like there is no director of the theater. So we decided like, okay, like we are curating this event, but we don't want to be curators like a classical. We would just give a power, like we would distribute the power of a director to artists, and let's see what they will do with this. So we started like to organize round tables, like we just invite artists, everybody who want to participate. We would have like meetings every week with people to think about like what do you want, what you propose, like what kind of what is your initiative, and it was not always easy because we just realized that we are so much used to hierarchical structures and somebody who tells you what to do. Yeah, exactly. So when you're in this radical space of horizontality, suddenly you're just like, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to construct a dialogue with the other person. We don't have these tools actually to work together on the same level. So some people was proposing something, some people at the end didn't propose anything. It was also fine. I was also sending just invitation for all the friends, all my artist friends that I thought might be interested by this idea to like reinvent it. There was there was no selection, no artistic committee. We really tried to put like, we really tried to find place for every project that was proposed. And for sure, because the theme was about like art and society in general, and how theater could be more a social space somehow, how theater could have more connections to people that live around, to the city in general, to its life. So all ideas was like on the age of art, society and politics, like let's say. For example, one of them, there was Magdalena Krowaniak, who is a Polish artist but lives in Austria. She proposed us a project that called Anti-Fascist Ballet School, and the idea, it's also, I will just show it to you. Oops. Yes, magic. So basically the idea, they are busy with like reconstructing ballet, like what is this language and how ballet can be more, like how you can do somatic ballet, let's say, or like leave the space for like they invented all this language, how you can how do you say, twist ballet language, or the rigidity, rigidity of ballet steps to something that actually will be good for you, good for the body, good for... and we did it in like a supermarket. They always do it in the... I just did some live, but you always would do it in the supermarket, in a place where people would just buy things, and so suddenly it would create like this piece of, you know, like well-being, like supporting each other in the arabesque, like in the in this field of like people who are just like trying to pack their things, and so it's a nice. Some people would watch for sure. Some people don't know how to react. It was also open for participation. You could participate if you would like to. And this one is also.
So it didn't happen inside the theater, it happened outside. So
Yes.
It was a.
It happens really like in the supermarkets. Children love to participate in this kind of things also. So this one. Somehow, I mean, for them, I think I wouldn't talk about because it's not my project, but for them it was important to have this contrast between like the word of consumption and like the word of like my body is enough for my well-being, like something like this. Oops. It's also, I mean, it's also to talk about that the ballet is accessible for everyone, that it's not like an elite form of art. I love these two body activities together, actually. Okay. So that's it. And we had also another artist called Mia Habib. You know, she did all the poem, the physical poem of all like this protest sort of choreography in the space. And we did it really because in Bordeaux there is also a lot, like at this moment there was like a lot of different manifestations, like feminist manifestations. And we would just go to these places and would perform, like would start to perform. The idea is like that you use just very simple thing like walking in different speed in the circle. She would realize that every demonstration would have like walking on different speeds. So somehow she put it in the circle. So if you want to slow walk, you can really walk close, like slowly to a center. If you want to run, you put yourself long and then you have to run. So it creates a sort of spin of different people. It was really beautiful to do it like in Bordeaux with feminist manifestation, and like there was woman, I think, yeah, it was also not, there was women like of different really age. We had like one woman like 90 years old or something walking with us, and like it's so beautiful that you have like it's beautiful that it's so simple that anyone can enter. She did also, like for example in Berlin, she did it with an SDF, like was performing together with a policeman. And her idea was really like, okay, it's a protest, like we bring people together around the protest, that like you can also work with the idea that you're protesting against something, and we would maybe protest against different things, but still we can do it together. It's kind of so it was really like she was really I don't know if we managed to what we try to do in Bordeaux, also to find different groups of really people sometimes that are in conflicts with each other, and to bring them together in this experience, to live it together.
In Israel, it's so interesting. In Israel, sometimes in demonstrations, so people that are against the subject are coming and also demonstrating, and it's a bit scary always, but it's also funny that it can mix sometimes, like, yeah, but you don't know how to act anymore, like everybody is.
Yeah, it's true. But it's also the point that for sure we are demanding, like in France, for example, what is happening now in France, the demonstration of Gilets jaunes, yellow jackets. But a lot of people are joining in. Like they started like together, but then like ecologists together with them, and like other workers are together. So they use this movement to kind of empower also, to make it bigger. But sometimes it's true, like okay, we can use these strategies, but also to find each other, like people from opposite camps, for example, who wouldn't like want to talk to each other, like find each other together in the same like living experience. That might change something. I think it's like what we wanted also to do in Bordeaux. We didn't manage because it demands a lot of work, but to bring all these different people who demanding different things, but and first we want them to, it's interesting when they leave this experience and then they talk, not to talk before the experience. Because then you see really a power of like a performance somehow. For example, we did it in Bordeaux, it was really interesting. We did it in Bordeaux in a very central place, which is like a square where people are crossing. We would just walk, we would just do a score for maybe 30 minutes or something like this, 25 even. And then at the end, the score ends up that we just go on the circle, like the end of the circle, we just wait a little bit, like we feel the moment, and then we just go out. And the point is like, at the end of this, when it was spinning, like everybody was crossing, and nobody really cared, like okay, whatever, like people are walking straight, but these people are walking this way, so it doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's not spectacular and everything. Some people even didn't notice something is happening, but one point when we stood up and like we did nothing, and there was like this empty space that was organized, like suddenly it was really magical, because people couldn't, like they didn't enter in the circle. All of a sudden it became sacred for them, the space. And we don't know why, because all our attention was there, or because before we did this thing, like suddenly people was like, and they see and they just go around. Or suddenly maybe we created a sort of how do you say, a stage in the public space just with our gaze. It's also possible. So yeah, it was super interesting. But every time, for sure, it's interesting to see, to do the actions in the
stop,
real.
maybe. When you stop, it's different.
Yeah, it's also when you stop. I don't know why, but it was real. Like we was amazed, because while we was doing it, nobody even paid attention, and all of a sudden there was this thing. Like for sure, also physically. That's why. I mean, busy with dance, we also can feel it, like with Fufa and other projects, like you feel that this endurance, the dance itself as a practice, it's changing your own body, your perception, everything. It changed the way you live your life somehow through everyday life. So, yeah, maybe it's also this magical thing, like after doing something, the air would be different. We would feel ourselves differently. So it would felt weird. It was about this.
Can you show this? Do you have a?
No. I think we might have it somewhere, but this is in the theater. And often
It was in the theater?
No, not the time that I'm talking about. It was outside for us. But sometimes she do it also in the theater, because we decided to do it really in the protest spaces. And in the theater she do it also naked. Like it depends with the people she do. And it's also, and of course it's another experience. But I unfortunately I don't have any videos. And she actually had an amazing post on Facebook. It's on the subject that we wanted to discuss with Ido on boycottable, because there was one festival in Oslo, she's from Oslo, who boycotted Israeli artists, and they had like long like discussion around this. like why do we boycott people, da, 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 da. And it's very interesting, like we wouldn't do it now, but for sure I would do it with Ido, because I just realized she did it like a few days ago, and Mia Habib. And it's really interesting because you have these like letters, yeah, like letters from, yes, we have it. Like from directors of the festival explaining why they boycott, and then artists also responding to this, and I mean it really provokes a lot of thoughts and ideas around this subject. We will do it with Ido next time. What I want to say, and what I would finish briefly with thing that I will be organizing in Moscow from May next year, and I called it Съезд сообщества современного танца. It's like a dance community congress, contemporary dance community congress, let's say. The idea is, because I also realized that it's not often that artists can have enough space to talk. For sure, we're also presenting like our works, talking on itself. But for me, it's like it's a huge part of reflection, of artistic reflections, stays really in the shadow, because it's not present, especially for dancing people, because like for dance people, it's usually dance talks itself, so performance talks itself, and the idea is like to really bring the community on different subjects that are problematic. For example, around dance and money, surviving subjects, around producers in dance. Like first, I think we would do because we really miss people who works with dance as a art field, who knows it, who can talk about it, move it some places. So every time, like this congress would happen around the topic that are actual, to educate, to self-educate, but also to discuss all together and maybe together find some.
And it's already happened, or it's the first time?
The first time it will happen in May. Mm-hmm. And the idea is like it will be really great. I'd like to invite Ido there. He will. No, I'm looking at the camera because he will be watching this. But the idea is that it becomes international, and that because I think like what I said to finish blah blah the talk and everything. For me, it's very interesting how the political and cultural context where we live in, changing our body, and not only our body but also the work that we do, how actually basically experience that we live in changing our approach to work. And I think like for me, for example, being here, it's also magical to see all your works, because I know that it couldn't have been Russian, for example. It's stupid, but I would say what I was talking about is like the way you work with your. Oh my God, I'm like getting tired. I have to stop. Work with your body. Sometimes it's so extreme. Like we wouldn't go to this kind of extreme place, maybe because we are lazy or like. But even like the way we do contemporary dance, it's different. And French people, for example, do it also differently because they have different history and also, I mean, for sure, body is shaped by experience we're living in. That's when I wanted to end up with the thing, because after doing dance walks, for example, I don't have the same approach to the city that I had before. So artistic experience also can change but also, I mean, a traumatic experience can change the way you perceive world. So it's all the, like for me, maybe in this kind of sense, like art can make, change somehow because it proposes the body a different experience, and when you live through it, something would change somehow. So, but it's also interesting to, I would say I'm really interested how our body is shaped by being in a different cultures and political situations, but also the importance of community to for the artist, basically. I just realized that I don't know. That's maybe the question that I wanted to end up with, and maybe give it to you. Like, is it important the artist community for you? Do you feel like you need it more? Do you feel the exchange is necessary? What you mean? Like for me, for example, it's a vital thing. Like it's very important in different senses. But I also question like the importance of community for artists, and also self-organized communities. Maybe it's different than proposed community constitutions. So maybe it's an open question, like how do you feel here? Like, do you miss? Because in Russia, like in a few words, like in general, we feel that people are very separated and come together. It's difficult. So it's already coming all together. It's changing something, but
I think it's interesting because we don't have a lot of collectives here. A bit more now, but we're not. Like, we have the choreographer association, which is like a more of a budget-wise association. But we do sometimes things together. We think together about things. But it's really strange because, well, I didn't translate what they said, but there was this like big issue with this law, about this loyalty in arts, in culture law that there's the culture, the head of the culture office is trying to pass in the parliament. It's a very problematic law, and a lot of and the artists, most of the artists are against it. And the very strange thing that it was about it, that we realized that we must connect together, the artists, and we're so much solists, and suddenly this thing made us connect and collaborate, and there were like, they become like WhatsApp groups, a lot of like blah blah blah, a lot of things, and collaborating and meeting, and a lot of artists together and thinking together. And it was really strange that it came from the outside, from organizing ourselves against someone, and not
happening classically in society. You know, you always much more easy to organize yourself
against something.
How do you say, enemy, against the enemy, than just solidarity.
But in a way, there is, I think, there is a movement of more collectives, artistic clubs, of more conferences. Even this, like it's first, you see it, not a lot of people, because the first time, and we're trying to make some dialogue about dance much more than before. So I think community is something. It goes double ways, because like artists are really solists, but now we realize that we're going elsewhere, and actually all the world is going elsewhere. It's not about like competitive solist work, it's about teamwork. So where are we in this art field with this
I think
thing?
it's struggle here because how the budget is organized.
It's true, it's only
like
for solists.
So it's not possible. Even when you're doing something like only with another choreographer, it's become an issue that, okay, who is getting the money?
It's true. That's always, it's true, because we think it's like that's how capitalism is working. Like in a sense, it's supposed the conference, so we have a limited budget, so maybe you, but not you.
Yeah.
So for sure it creates.
Or sometimes if you work together, they don't know how to. What is it? Okay. So what is it? It's a dance piece. It's who is the choreographer? You know, you have criteria, and if it doesn't fit, so it's nothing, like money-wise. So it's also influence, I think, the scene and also the work, and how, because we have similar processes, because we need to fit to the criteria. So it's also influencing a lot of what's going on, and to to break it, it's hard.
Yeah, you need to do an effort,
Yeah.
but really like collective effort. Somehow
Yeah.
everyone has to like understand, engage a little bit why it's also important for him. I don't know, yeah. But there is also sad cases, like I don't know if you heard about ZAD in France. There was a people who was occupying a territory where they wanted to build the airport, and so they just basically moved to this land. It was in Brittany, in France. They occupied it for 2 years. They lived together. They built houses. Like they said, you're not gonna build the airport here because we are living here. You like cannot build it on us, okay? So they built all these things, and all of a sudden the project of the airport was not there anymore. So they fight it. They win the fight. But the thing is, like at the end, they realize, okay, we are actually good living here. Like now we want to have a collective project for like 50 people, and we're gonna occupy this land, and like we're gonna just have a collective project. And there was all these crazy fights with the government, because the government said like you cannot have a collective project. You can have like say choose one person. Choose one person to on which name this land will be, and they're like, no, like wait guys, like we've been living together like for 2 years, like on the same land, we are so good, like we don't want, it's against our ideas and everything. And I think that they lost, they were moved, like the government didn't allow to have a collective project for the land. So it means a lot, you know, in France, I mean.
But I think about collectives here, I feel that, first of all, I feel there is a change also because there is, it's also got to do with education, because there is not, I mean, lately there is more, like the collectives is a new program, like I'm running Kelim, a choreography program, so I think, but otherwise a lot of the dance studies are mixed with the pedagogical dance teaching. So you have a mixed level, and a lot of time it's marked as less professional. I mean, in the dance academy and the
but even now in the dance academy, people started a collective after. Now there is a collective. So even in the academy, things start like collective wise.
But I think studies place are a good place for because you're open. You're not yet like on your. And I think this is something that shifts gradually because there are more dance structures. And before there wasn't, like, and then people were really, and also I think it opens up to this fact of like outside eye, like I'm for example an outside eye or dramaturge of other people, and I think this is something when I came back to Israel like 2004. It wasn't at all common. I was shocked by it because I came back from Brussels, like from parks and people were like, I remember like even Yasmin, like 3 weeks before the premiere, she would enter somebody. Everything was like shh, and it was very surprising for me because I came from this open mind, and this is really changing. Yeah. People are letting in outside eye. There is less like protection. We share processes. We show. And I feel this is also an opening that leads to collectivity. Because
also residencies,
and residencies.
It's a very new thing, residencies.
Yeah, it's
yes, I can
so
imagine,
in that
like
sense, there is a shift, and I think the fact that we do become a community, because if I'm her dramaturge, but then I replace her when she's pregnant as a dancer, and so we become a community. We start to share different platforms between us, and I think this happens much more than before. So I feel there is a change, and I do think we feel a community. I mean, I feel at least somebody is there. But I feel,
but is it important? It's important.
Yeah,
for you.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, because we are such a limited, small minority. Anyhow, so I guess it's nice to feel part of something. Not the only weirdo in the house. We have some other weirdo friends around here. It is nice, but so I think we are.
Yeah, and also I found it that it's really interesting. Like I saw a lot of things that I connect to. That although we're in a very different context, we use the body. We use the body in a context which is quite worldwide in a way, because we live in a place which a lot of similarities influence us, and then the body and its actual realness is something that we share, and I feel that we somehow do the same actions, even though we do the actions on a different environment. We do the same actions, which is amazing, because this is the same body, and in a way we resemble so much. So yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy for me also, but it's very nice. I mean, like for me being here, it's super nice because somehow I don't know why, but that's what we was talking with Ido about also before I came here, and now it's more supported. Because we are a little bit like, it's also being in Europe, it's really cool because you have a lot of knowledges and everything, but somehow we cannot really connect, like it's a bit different, like I don't know, we are, like being here, I feel also that the way somehow you construct, I don't know, your thinking, and like I feel connected, but I don't know, and we was talking about this, the idea of boycott, well, because Russia is also boycotted now. I mean, it's like we are also like, I mean, doing really badly. Oh, really? So yeah, there is like I don't know. I hope it will get better, and we will have a chance also to talk about this, like before this thing will end up, because I don't want to touch this without him, but yeah, I think we might have even more similarities, like but also about the community, like for example, the thing that I realized, like I did sort of for 3 years in Moscow, because it was super difficult to find money, because I was a producer myself, like I had to find money for da. But you can really see how this three generation of people already change the landscape. It's like crazy, and how they're also like the fact that it was more community based, and the fact that they used to like, for example, we often did this practice like. You have an idea and you are doing it with the people, and then someone would watch, and you would change all the time, like the statuses, like you are a performer or you are a dramaturg or you're a choreographer, and you like have to switch between this in a group. It creates a sort of this like, and this is what dance allows basically. It's like it's allowed also to take all these different positions, not being like, we're not like, okay, I'm a president, you know? Like, I mean, I'm at this and not anything else. So this flexibility, it's also a flexibility of the mind and the body, and it's like for me dance proposed this, and this and for me, like at this point, like dance is almost political, like in a very I don't know, core of it, because we accept this mobility of the different roles and approaches and relationships and everything. So
we come and roll on the floor.
I roll on the floor.
We roll on the floor.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think we have to.